Good to know.
There you go. All right, everybody, welcome. It is, what month is this now? It is June. This is the virtual chapter meeting of IACT IMDHA for June 2018. We are a chapter of IACT and IMDHA. We are also endorsed by the International Hypnosis Federation. I just thought that I'd mention that because if you're a member of any of those three organizations, you can get CEUs for being with us tonight. So be sure and keep track of it and let the folks know that you want your CEUs. I actually suspect that there are other organizations who will also give you CEUs if you tell them that you were here for this enlightening discussion.
We don't have that etched in stone, so.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, so some people are just very, very stingy with their etchings, but but nonetheless, they'll go ahead and give people CEUs. So, yeah, so feel free to do that. Here it is June, and the last time that we were here was before the IACT IMDHA Hypno Expo 2018. And I was there, Karen was there, and I understand that Joni was there, but somehow or another she managed to get by me. I don't think I got a chance to see you or say hello to you. So
I know, I hated that.
It was just terrible.
I know.
But other than that, it was a lovely conference, except for that one part, and that just ruined the whole thing for me. So I'm glad that we're able to make up for it now. Because now
we could already go ahead and start about filtering. We could talk about filtering like right now.
We could.
Yeah. Or we could just go ahead and talk about how great it's going to be next year, because that won't happen. So.
Well, it is going to be great next year because my friend in Australia has already told me so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Karen and I were there, and Karen, what'd you do at the expo?
What did I do at the expo? I had a great time at the expo. Saw lots of good friends, got new jewelry, I got to say. At the expo tables, you know, that's not the main thing that's at the expo tables, but one of my favorite things is one of my favorite tables at the IACT conference in particular that sells jewelry that I just love. So you'll see a lot of new necklaces coming your way soon. I also taught a couple of classes. I taught a full day workshop. I guess I should really talk about business, right, instead of the fun stuff on the side. But I taught a full day workshop on stop, look, and listen. Listening, I think, and learning and discovering information, the most important thing that we do. And I taught about my book and sold a lot of books, which I guess I should say brings me to the award. Michael and I each won an award at IACT, which was a very cool thing. I'll let Michael tell about his in just a moment, or I'll tell about yours and you tell about mine. I don't know which way you want to go with this.
That'll be lovely.
Well, Michael won, and he's such a humble character. Michael won for Best Chapter of the Year. This one, our virtual chapter. How cool is that? And Michael was being very humble and said, you know, it's not just me, Karen does it too. And I want you to know something. I've been in here a minute and a half compared to the length of time that Michael has spent with this group. Mm-hmm. And I'm so honored that he brought me aboard and made me part of this. I first became acquainted with this virtual chapter a long time ago when the only way I could get on, it could have been my equipment or it could have been the way it was done there, was just through a teleseminar. And I listened to Michael interview some people and it was just lovely. And I became acquainted with IACT that way and got interested in IACT. And then he evolved it, because Michael is the god of evolutionary hypnosis, and he evolved it to what we're doing now, where we can see each other and all get together in a room. And so that definitely, Michael, you deserve that for all the work that you had put into this and for making this such a great chapter. I just love it. Thank you for making me a part of it.
Well, thanks for saying that. And you're right. You know, I mean, I do know that that this is a project that's been literally 20 years in the making. I was doing a monthly thing in San Francisco. It was a live thing before I moved to Florida, and that's now been 20 years. Then I was doing it here, and IACT and IMDHA wanted to know if I would run a chapter in the Orlando area. And because I am so dedicated to service, I said, well, hell no. Because I've got too many things going on and I don't have time to do another thing. I already have a monthly group that I'm having a hard time getting people to come to. And they said, well, if you've already got a group, you know, and it's open to anybody, what if it also was a chapter for IACT and IMDHA? So my first Monday group became a chapter of IACT and IMDHA. and that didn't really change anything. So we decided we wanted to push it a little bit, and we went online with teleseminars, as you're saying. So this is 5 or 6 years. So we did the teleseminars, and what happened was my lovely First Monday group, which was this great little social outlet that was very small, five or six people that used to get together monthly, were now showing up to watch me do a radio show, and that really isn't what I wanted that to turn into. So what happened was my First Monday group went back to being itself, and the radio show ultimately went video and became the second Tuesday of the month, and here we are today. And and it's you guys, it's everybody that comes to this that has made it happen. So I'll take the credit, Karen, for putting the time in, but I want to tell you something, because I know hypnotists are sensitive to metaphors and they appreciate metaphors. And one of my favorite metaphors is this notion of a trim tab. And a trim tab is essentially a rudder on a rudder. If you have a big ship that has a rudder sticking out of the back of it, when it wants to turn in a harbor, the rudder turns, and that will make the ship turn, and it takes a certain amount of distance for the ship to be able to make that turn. A trim tab on the back of the rudder actually adds another level to this turning action that allows the ship to turn more quickly and more easily. So it may be, Karen, that you've only been involved with the virtual chapter for a little while, but a little while that has made all the difference in the world in terms of being able to get this thing going. So thanks. So now I'm gushing about my great friend here because she has contributed so much to this. And while I'm gushing, I will tell you that her book, Magic Words and Language Pattern, Simplicity Patterns for Hypnotists. Magic Words and Language Patterns is a lovely, lovely book, very readable, very usable. Folks in our class are just loving it. Has won the Pen and Quill Award from IACT and IMDHA. From which organization does it come from?
IMDHA.
IMDHA. Yeah. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud
for that as well. And that, my friends, is our report about the Hypno Expo. Anything else to add? The banquet was pretty good. I understand that Richard Nongard, by the way, has a virtual conference coming up, but I don't think that the food will be as tasty.
That depends. Everybody gets to bring their own, so it depends on from where you order.
I see. Yeah. Everybody orders their own. That's how. That's great. The food is supplied by Domino's, and everybody gets a local number to call, and it just gets delivered right to your house. Perfect.
Anything.
It's ideal. So. Well, I think I've just about said everything that I can. I do want to let you know that, as I said, this is being recorded right now, so all this crazy antics is down for all posterity. And it will be posted tomorrow on the IACT IMDHA forum. It will be posted on the virtual chapter group on Facebook, and it will also be posted, and it's actually where they're all parked, in the virtual chapter YouTube channel. So you can get it in any of those places. If you're a member of the virtual chapter group on Facebook, of course, you'll get it'll show up in your newsfeed, so you won't even have to think about it again. So if you haven't joined the chapter yet, virtual chapter on Facebook, join the group, and then you'll know what's going on here from month to month. I do want to mention a couple things really quick that are coming up, because the schedule keeps moving. August is just around the corner, and that means Hypno Thoughts in Las Vegas once again this year, back to Las Vegas. And in September, HPTI is having a virtual conference online that I mentioned that Richard Nongard is now running, and you'll hear more of that as time goes on. And then in October, Karen, where are we going to be?
The Mid-America Hypnosis Conference right here in Chicago.
Oh,
our best month, so you got to visit us here.
Yeah, well, lovely.
Yeah. And to be fair to everybody out there in hypnosis land, let's not forget that the NGH also has his conference in August, in early August, and Hypno Thoughts is in later August.
Yes.
So try not to leave anybody out. And there's a conference in Toronto in later October as well. So now everybody's gotten a little plug.
There you go. Yeah. And So lots of things to do, always a lot of things to do in the hypnosis community. And one of the things too that I will tell you, the reason that I'm so crazy about this stuff and all of these conferences is that there was a time when I probably thought that I was the only hypnotist in the village. I think a lot of us had that experience. I mean, I've been doing hypnosis for 37 years now. I didn't know other people who did hypnosis when I started, certainly not that were around me anywhere. Once I started getting involved with groups, particularly like IACT and IMDHA, I found a family, an extended family that includes, for example, people like the Elmans here that are on here tonight, that are, you know, my friend Karen, that I truly would call my friend, and so many people, you know, that we see every time we go to these things. It's a wonderful thing to know that there are hundreds of people that I could, literally hundreds of people that I could get on the phone and call if I was running into some challenge in my work or something like that, when there was a time when, like I said, I didn't know that there was another hypnotist in the world, other than those big guys that were on TV, you know, or something like that. So, so I really value associating. And for those of you who can't get to all the conferences because, yeah, we're traveling all over the place, we have the virtual chapter. So right there in your living room, you don't even need to wear shoes. You have the opportunity to hang out and associate and hear what's going on in the world of hypnosis, and talk to some great people like Joni Neidigh, by the way, that we're going to talk to in a couple of minutes here. So we ought to get around to that.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, and the one last thing before we do is to tell you that next month, and I'll make these announcements again at the very end, but next month our topic is going to be continuing education in hypnosis in a virtual age. Karen and I are going to talk a little bit about the online class that we've been teaching. We're also going to have Richard Nongard on the show, and we're going to have Jason Lynette on the show. And so it's going to be a little more of a panel and a lot of stuff to say about just the way things are virtually changing in the world of hypnosis and hypnosis education. So be sure and come to that next time, same time, same that channel, you know, right here in July for the second Tuesday of July. So now I am going to turn our attention to Joni, who is our guest here, Joni Neidigh. I hope that I'm pronouncing your last name right, Joni, because it's really rather complicated on paper.
Yeah, it's perfect. You did perfect. That was great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've heard it pronounced many ways, obviously, even in large settings like at big swim meets and things like that. So it's kind of interesting. Oh yeah, my kids have been called like Neidigh, Needy. You don't want to be called Needy when you're about to race and compete. Like, yeah. I think we have a running list somewhere. So.
Wow. Well, and by the way, I just might mention as we're introducing her, first of all, Joni is a licensed mental health counselor. She's one of the official folks, if I could use the word that way. And so we really appreciate that she's using hypnosis as a part of the work that she does. Something that's interesting to me, Joni, is that you are in fact probably more known for your work in sports, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but just to let everybody know, Joni works with Olympic athletes and, well, just all kinds of stuff with competitive swimmers in particular, and so we might hear a little bit about that before the evening goes, but people talk to her about that all the time.
Yes.
And the thing is that she is the originator of this anger and violence intervention program, AVIP. Do you say, or
yep.
AVIP?
Yep. It's just known in the community as AVIP.
As AVIP.
For sure. Yeah, they get tired of saying all those words. So.
And you've been doing that a lot longer, even than doing sports, have you not?
Yes, and thanks for bringing that up. And I really appreciate being invited to talk about this because, I do get a lot of attention for the sports because, in sports, a lot of times the Olympics are the only time that some people pay attention to sports. And so when they hear that you've worked with, that level athlete, all of a sudden you become very popular. And so I appreciate that. But for such a long time, over now we were looking at 20, this is our 25th year with the anger program. That's been my main I'd say my baby, the thing that I'm the most proud of, because it was a difficult program to get started. And so that story is, if you want to hear that, I'd be happy to share.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering, because I'd like to hear I love the getting started stories all the time. So what I'm wondering is the hypnosis getting started story after the anger management getting started story?
Yes.
Okay, well then why don't we start with the first one?
Okay, yes, kind of. Well, because my husband was actually trained in hypnosis in 1992. So he's the first hypnotist in the family.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, he asked if I wanted to go to the training with him, and it was in Orlando actually, several weekends. And at the time I was 9 months pregnant, 8.5, and I said, I think I'll pass, but mainly because I was skeptical. I just thought, I don't know. I said, you go and come back and tell me what it's like, and I'll decide if I'm gonna do this. And so he would come back and describe what was happening, and I was still skeptical. That was just, the place that I was in at the time. And of course, being younger and trained in counseling, I was just determined, and I had an understanding that was the way to go. The things that I knew and the things I was adding, that, so why would I need hypnosis? And so he, he runs our practice, and he started using some hypnosis in the practice, and would love to do more of it, which I think is great because he'll be able to do that soon. But I just basically closed the door on that. And so I could have been doing this much longer. But having said that, with the anger program, I was approached by my community, which is always a beautiful thing. If they ask you to do something, you say yes, right? And they said, the recidivism rate is so high with in child abuse cases, domestic violence, and, just all the way around, that you guys have a solid practice where we'd like for you to consider running a group. Okay. And so I had some training in my counseling internships, working with some very difficult cases out at the boys' home, and also at the prison. And so, I was thrown into some difficult situations, which I think was very good. So I said I would take on the challenge, not knowing a whole lot actually about specifically how to do that. Now, I've always been pretty good at managing groups, and I think that's a skill we have to be aware of, and if we don't have those skills to take a leadership position, and make sure that everybody's safe and taken care of, then we have to look at that first. But that I kind of had a handle on, and there was always a joke, because we both have the same last name. They always thought my husband was running the groups because they heard about how well they were going and how well they were managed, and they'd say they thought it had to be him because he was the guy, right? And my husband would not like to run those groups, actually, so just the opposite. So I read, got my hands on everything I could read, and I started training with some really wonderful people. I love Donald Michael Baum in particular. He was just really great. He did a lot of work in anger and rage, and to be honest, it just became a trial and error.
Yeah. That
wasn't the hard part. The hard part, and the reason I wanted to start with this, is mentioning that sometimes it, as hypnotists, especially, it can be hard to tap into a political system, of course, and, get our services accepted. And so I have a lot of experience in getting accepted, and this was probably still to date. I think it's easier for me to get accepted as a hypnotist right now than it was to start this program, because there's always been, and it's a great program, the Duluth model, for domestic violence. And I have a lot of nice things to say about that model. But I went and got trained in that as well, because of course I wanted to know what wasn't working as well as they had hoped, that the recidivism rates were so high.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I wanted to, take from that what was great and then add or delete anything, that I felt just simply wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that. And then I had to approach the judges to grow the program because it was working. And so I wanted to, I just wanted to add as many groups as we could, and including Friday nights. So for about 10 or 15 years, I ran 3 groups on Friday nights as well.
Wow.
I don't do that now.
Yeah. Yeah, there goes your weekends.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I would like to. So we're kind of working on that now. We're hoping with a new therapist who would be willing to be trained in hypnosis, that we can get someone young who, really wants a job, who will work on Friday nights. So I may be supervising again. But I just think, like with anything else, I went into that meeting with, like, as if we would need to as hypnotists, and just, with conviction that I really believed in what I was doing. And, I had some testimonials at that point. People, they were able to be reunified with their kids sooner. And, just some really good things were starting to happen. But I learned it all from the clients.
Yeah. You almost sound like an NLP person to me. And that's really a good thing, by the way, at least as I assess the situation, because what I'm hearing is you walked into this situation and did what was available to you to do, but you did it with an eye for what isn't working about this that can be adjusted, or what is working about this that can be really utilized and made to work fuller. So you're doing some live modeling and creating on the fly, which is just a really brave thing to do. And how exciting.
Yeah, thank you for saying brave, because it felt, going into that first meeting, which, by the way, it was with the public sector, and I'm in private practice. So sometimes we're seen as, greedy private practitioners, and which is, I now not so much, because we've been working with the community for so long. But at the time, I was pretty new on the scene. And so I think they thought that was maybe the motive. And I was invited to the meeting by our sheriff. And then I got a phone call that I had gotten the invitation inadvertently, was the language that they used. And so in that moment, I can clearly remember where I was sitting, how it felt, and, what that conversation. And it felt like, I got an invitation to a birthday party, but it was they mailed it to the wrong address. Does that make sense?
It honestly is actually thinking that inadvertently and serendipitously really might be the same word after all.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. So there I am. I'm at a fork in the road. And so I have a choice to say, oh yeah, okay, well, I guess I won't come. But that's not my style. And, I put on, just kind of, decided that I was either going to listen to a bad coach or a good coach, within myself. And I just said, I tell you what, I said, I won't come to the meeting that I wasn't actually invited to if the sheriff calls me and tells me himself that he doesn't want me to be there, because it's really important to me to understand that that's where leadership is at the time. I want to understand my community better. So I'm really fine with that, but please, I would really appreciate that phone call. Mm-hmm. And so the next phone call was from the sheriff inviting me to the meeting. Oh. And so that's where I really had to be brave to show up, come to the meeting. Can you imagine? I mean, so I'm thinking, well, this is going to be super fun, because I get to show up to a place where they just kind of did the right thing. And, I don't mind sharing this story, and my community is well aware of it at this point, and we all laugh about it, because now it's a whole different story many years down the road. But again, I think it's just always being, not knowing everything, but knowing that the most important thing we have is like conviction and drive and motivation, and just the willingness to show up and
well,
what
I'm
happened.
curious if I can dig just a little bit, because I'm wondering what gave you the drive to pursue this particular thing, as opposed to there are all kinds of other choices, Joni, and this one seems to be something you took on with a real passion.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure anyone's ever actually asked me that. So I, yeah, so I was in a marriage that was very interesting in terms of anger management, and not a violent relationship, but just, tense relationship. And my father was a boxer, so you can see where that comes from. And early on, he struggled with a temper, but by the time I came along and being the only girl, I heard it's a little bit different version at that point. But I just really never liked that. Anytime I felt unsafe, or hearing stories about people that felt unsafe, and seeing clients that, especially the children. I was working with sexual abuse victims. I've done a lot of that work, and then children physically abused as well. And so that really hit just a nerve with me, in terms of, I got to do something about this problem, and it can't be the same old stuff. And I still feel that way, to every day. It can't be the same old stuff. It can't be. I have a workbook and a program, but I always have to be adding things.
Sure.
Because as creative as we can be as change makers, people are also getting more creative with their anger and the violence and behavior as well. So kind of like keeping up. But yeah, so that's to be honest with you, I get driven once I get driven, and I sort of isolate that focus, that it's just kind of gets crazy.
Sure. Well,
yeah. And so now it's hypnosis.
And so say someplace along the line, hypnosis came to the forefront for you. You said, oh, now I'm going to fold that in. I'm going to roll that in. How'd that happen?
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting, because looking back at how I used to run the groups before I knew what NLP actually was and hypnosis, I was already doing some of that. A lot of visualization. I knew that people were, in the groups would be triggered by voices, certain voices would set them off. It may sound like someone that, upset them before, or colors. I could pick up on if I was wearing a certain color, and I'd notice, every Wednesday night, so-and-so would, just kind of react on this way if I'm wearing whatever. I started, because I overthink everything, I'm always processing what's going on. And so I think I started having them close their eyes, and I started really using a lot of visualization. But I started using the hypnosis as a result of watching athletes who were very talented, working really, really hard in school, whether it was college or, high school. And they were very talented, working really hard in their practices for their sport. And it just wasn't transferring to the competitive arena. So they could do it one place, but they couldn't generalize that to another. And so I was out in Arizona. So this is the real story. Okay. I finally had 3 or 4 days to do nothing, which was, hadn't happened. And I started Googling and, saying, there's something missing. Got to add something, got to help these athletes and all of the clients. Things have got to move faster. Mm-hmm. And there just has to be something better. All the while, my husband still has the certification in hypnosis. Right. So, and I'm not looking him up, but I could have talked to him about it. But so first person I found was actually Dr. Richard Nongard. And so I said, that's it. I'm going to learn all about hypnosis. And then one thing led to another. And then I went on this crazy 2-year training spree. So that's why you've seen, if you're my Facebook friend, I'm always somewhere else. And my friends joked about it being, where's Waldo? But it's like, what hypnosis training are you at now? So I've been, so it started with HypnoThoughts, actually was the first interaction that I had with other hypnotists, which was amazing. And, so since I didn't have any of my own, I didn't have any audios, I had very basic skills. And now all of a sudden it's 2 years later, and I've got athletes that really want to make the Olympic team, and they were quite capable of doing so.
Nice.
So I just called on the few hypnotists that I knew at the time, and they gave me passed on some audios and some materials and some ideas. And again, I was in experimenting, just from my perspective. And I said, you know what, you guys, you need to try this, because otherwise you're going to have the same situation that you had before, because you got so close. And they were great. They were on board. They loved it. They call it fun. They think hypnosis is, and I'm going to use their words, fun and jazzy.
Yeah.
Okay, that's so cool, right?
Yeah.
And so so we had we sent 3 boys off with some audios to help them sleep, and an audio for between, because they have several sessions, the prelims and finals, that for swimming, that they have to get just the right amount of rest. You don't want them in a really deep sleep, because then they won't perform well. And they all say it helped, and they all came home with shiny gold medals. And then HypnoThoughts was right after that. And and I thought, oh wow, I need to tell all these folks that pitched in, that how much I appreciate that, because I'm getting all the credit. And now I'll take some credit, because I'm doing a lot of my own stuff, but just in terms of confidence, but I'm still borrowing all the time. I see no reason personally to reinvent the wheel when I have all of you. And it is, it's just a beautiful thing. Yes.
There's no rule. Let me think. The rule is, if you're going to steal from the best. And boy, that's what part of what we do, is meet the best when we do these things. When we go to conferences, when we go to these meetings like this one, we meet the best.
Yeah, and then we steal from them.
Right. I know. It's great. And then you just put a little spin on it, and it's just it's just great. But I have not ever had an experience where I had this much support professionally. I haven't found that in the counseling world.
Isn't that great?
Where we're sharing of ideas, and
I think a lot of us really we're collaborators as opposed to competitors. It's not the same marketplace that most other people work in every day. I hope so. At least that's what I like about it, and how it works for me. So here's one of the things that I want to steal from you. I'll tell you something that I really think is paramount in the work that we do in hypnosis for almost any issue, is the central issue still seems to be something about state management, about people being able to sort of keep their stuff together, or to decide that they're going to do something and actually follow through on the decisions they make, those kind of things, all those things that folks, just often find so hard to do. And so anger management becomes something that's very interesting to me, because it's a really powerful example of this kind of self-management and self-control. But also the other thing that I think that we can all learn from you, at least judging from a Facebook thread that I was reading the other day that suggests that most people don't have any experience of this kind of thing. I'm willing to bet that you found yourself in some interesting situations that most practicing hypnotists don't know anything about, in the sense that you may be working with people that are court ordered, so they're not there because they want to be.
Yes.
And you may also find out, you may have the answer for the question that is, what do you do if you don't like the clients that you're working with?
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. I like the clients that I'm working with, though, I will tell you. And the majority of the program, involves court-ordered. It's a court-ordered program, and we do allow voluntary clients. Usually work one-on-one with voluntary clients because they don't have to. They're not a captive audience. They don't have to show up every week, and that's the beauty of having the court-ordered program.
Mhm.
But I'm glad you said everything you just said and led into that question. I'll share a story with you because I've had so many different types of clients, but it was good. Every time someone challenged me, every time something would be, just a little different, or I get a feeling that maybe wasn't as confident, or it's just a situation I hadn't seen before. I got stronger and more skilled, and made me want to learn more and talk to people who maybe had. Again, though, I didn't have the kind of support that I have with this group. So there was I've had several interns, and that's always a wonderful opportunity to bring interns into a group like that. With people of the greatest resistance, where someone is telling them they have to be there. So their control is important to them, and now all of a sudden they have no control, right?
Right.
So we're not changing the control or helping them to see where the areas where they have control at this point. They're just stripping them and saying, you're going to show up, you're going to pay, you're going to check in, you're not going to do this. I mean, there's a laundry list of things that they've been told. And then here they are sitting in front of me. And so tons of experience with resistance. So I had an intern, and she was doing so well. I wanted so badly to develop this group of clinicians that love this work as much as I do. And she was starting to. So I thought, okay, here's one. I've got one, because everyone would leave because they didn't like the clients, or they didn't like the work. And she was on board until, and I'm going to make up a name, until I'll just call him Bart, okay? Until Bart showed up. And so he was this like really big, strong man with a very violent past, but this time he had gone a little too far and assaulted a police officer. And that's not a good thing, because he was going to serve some time. And so in the interim, they ordered him to come to my group. Okay, so now he knows he's going to go serve time. So what motivation does he have to really come and get anything out of group? Because the distorted thinking, not at that time, he wasn't future pacing or thinking about, how things could be at that time when he got out, but he was thinking about, I have to be here. And now he's angry because he's here. And so my intern says to me, oh, it's Wednesday night. And I said, okay. I said, what is it we don't like about Wednesday? I did not get the memo this morning. And she said, Bart's going to be there. Okay. And for just a moment, and it was the first time, that tells you how much I love the work. And I walk in there, and I've done a lot of work on myself, and I still do this now. Before I walk in there, there isn't any of that. I don't like this person. Because sometimes I'm the only one who does at the moment. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
And I have a real appreciation for the loneliness of what that feels like, because I've seen it on the faces of so many people. And so it's very, very important for me to keep that in check. And so, but Bonnie, she was very clear. She did not feel the same. And so I said, let's go into my office. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to send somebody from the front desk to give them something busy to do for 10 minutes. And we're going to work this through. And so we sat down, and I said, look, let's go in. I want you to go in. And it's so funny because remember, I don't have any hypnosis training or anything, other than my counseling. So let's go in as if these are your favorite people in the world, and you can't wait to help them. And that, the only thing that you can think about, that the most salient thing in your mind is that you want to see how many people you can leave having helped them with just one thing tonight. Try to help every one of them. And that included Bart. I didn't say it, but it did. And I just shared with her, I said, Bonnie, I said, the biggest challenge is tonight. And it's for me too, because for a split second when she said that, I thought that too.
Yeah.
It was the first time I thought, oh yeah, Bart's going to be there. And I didn't like it one bit. It just did not. So that's why I decided we were going to do the clearing. So I think I will tell you that my father did not know a stranger, and there wasn't anyone he wouldn't, he would give up on. And that's why he liked working at, his third job. He worked his third career. He worked with the most difficult students at a public high school. And he said, hey, I don't care what they do. And what if I have to stand on my head there and learn one thing before they walk out, because I'll tell them stories or do whatever, but we're going to meet them where they, wherever we can meet them. And so he just taught me a lot of practical skills, but I think I just took that to heart. And also I just think that's who I am.
Yeah.
I just don't want, and I've seen, again, I get some post-parole cases sometimes, and, Richard Nongar just wrote the book about counseling people who have killed people.
Right.
That's a thing. And it's something you have to know, how can I optimistically and willingly help someone who's done that? That's a question you have to ask yourself.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Joni, do you ever feel endangered? Do you ever feel like you're in a dangerous situation?
Yeah, that's when you said that made me think of a time when we were operating out of a smaller office in Jacksonville. It was an interim office, and because we had purchased this building, and it was kind of creepy because we run groups late at night, and it had this eerie stairwell. And so, but no, at the time I still didn't feel that way, because they're open groups. I run open groups. So I've got some people who've been there a while, maybe they're about to, we call it graduate, and it's been almost 6-8 months. And then you've got people in the middle, and you've got people that are new, and that they all, they're able to show the other side of things. I sounded just like you when I came in here, right? So there's some identification, they can make, and they can normalize that for them. And I just think that they see the relationship that I have with those people, and they're encouraged by that, because they also say, I didn't like her very much when I got here either. And so they trust that the relationship can change, because there are times when I can't be this person that you see right now, where I have to show that that I have to take charge of that group. And when I say, we're going to switch gears and I need you to do this, they need to do it. And they're going to go to jail most likely if they don't comply. But I'll tell you, it takes a lot for someone to, for me to violate someone's probation. That would just absolutely mean that they have made a choice based on, having some real chance that they really don't want to get better. And that's a choice that I make very clear to them. And I think our clients come in and say they want certain things, but it's really a good idea to make sure that they do. And I always say, hey, if you look at values and then the beliefs that we say we have, that fall under those values, and then you look at behavior, and you demonstrate how that works for other people. You have them look at their own. You can just say, hey, here's the real choice. You can also change your values. and just be honest with yourself that you don't value human life, that you don't value family, and that you know what I'm saying. I mean, I know this sounds horrible, but we have to talk about this truth. I just haven't had anyone who chose to give up their values and would say, okay, I'm going to, you're right, I do like stabbing people, and I just want to say that, or I do like hurting my kid or burning my kid with an iron. I've seen it all. When they look at it that way, it seems to mean something to them. Mm-hmm. Because to be honest, how aware are most people of not only their behavior, because it's so automatic, but how many times do they stop and really figure out what rules are they living by? They're flying by the seat of their pants, so to speak. And so just bringing that to their attention and teaching them a whole lot about what they really just didn't understand, what they learned about anger and how automatic it is, that helps. And so have I ever felt scared? Oh, my dad decided when we were in that creepy building, he was still living at the time, that he was going to have a take your dad to work night every Friday night. I think that he may have been nudged on by my mom when she found out about the creepy building or something. But he came with me and checked people in at the front desk. And I think once he saw how things were run around, and how they went, he had some peace of mind. But I think that it's always great to have a healthy dose of awareness. Mm-hmm. And so I think I've always had that. I've always also, I have the ability, some pretty decent skills at assessing people. I do the initial assessments for the program. So I know if there are any medications involved, if there are any other diagnoses, any other substance abuse problems, things that we need to deal with, and make sure those things are in place as well. But so I don't know I'm not sure why I don't feel that fear, but I think part of it is if I project that fear, sure, they will have me for lunch, yeah, so to speak. You know, right, what I mean? There won't be any, yeah. And the beauty of it is if we can, they're all in that state. They're hypnotized. They've always been hypnotized. Apparently, I just learned this, several years ago, but that I had their attention. And if I said, okay, stop right there, and we'll get back to that, because they want to get back to it. We never get back to it, of course. They do that. And, I used to have them do crazy things that, I just thought I was the quirkiest therapist that ever lived. And now I realize there's a whole bunch of people called hypnotists out there that speak my language, and it makes me so happy. Yeah. But I think those are the things that have made a difference. They were just there, and I didn't know it. I didn't know there were names for some of the things that I was actually doing. And boy, now having all the tools, to stay, help in the moment, help people change that state control. That is a beautiful, empowering thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Speaking of names for everything, I can't help but be drawn to, in the table of contents of your anger management manual or book, there's something about the power and control wheel that just intrigues me. What is that?
Okay, well, so that's partly politics and partly, but they're also very important. When you are trained in the Duluth model for domestic violence, that is the core of their program. And so on the wheel, they list all of the behaviors that involve power and control, and so that they can see that wheel. And actually, I'll post that if you guys would like. I'll send it to you, because I have a really pretty one. I know that you can find them in different books, but ours is a really pretty copy in the book. But it basically it shows physical violence and sexual violence. It talks about using coercion and threats and intimidation, and how anger can be used for economic abuse. It kind of comes up. So it has all the different elements to kind of reasons and that people choose anger over other emotions. So, but that is, I included that as part of the program so that at the time I was being criticized because I did not have that training. Even though that was, that's the training that, sometimes there needs to be a second step.
Mm-hmm.
That was, that's something I valued from that program. So it's basically just information semantics, to describe what we already know is all the different.
I've seen lots of emotional wheels, right? And so that's what I'm imagining here, the power and control wheel. I'd love to see that, especially the pretty picture, of course.
Yeah, it's really pretty. I made mine colored. So, of course I did, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
My emotional wheel is flat on one side. I'm working on it. I
know. I keep hearing this word flat from you. What's going on? What's going on? Australia? And did I miss a joke, or is this like a theme for you?
It must be my theme.
I guess we can talk about that anytime. So
I'll tell you what. Something that you said that I just want to hark back, and I know it's a few paragraphs ago. We've kind of gotten a little bit away from it, but it's so important to me, and I love hearing you say it. So I asked you the tough question about well, what happens when you don't like your clients, and your answer was so matter of fact that it was beautiful.
Oh.
And the thing, I have recently seen this. That's why I mentioned something about Facebook earlier. I've seen a couple different threads where people had posed something like in one case it was something about infidelity in a relationship, and can two people in a relationship when one of them has been unfaithful get back together? And all of these therapists were saying, no way, terrible. If you can't trust somebody, leave them, kick them out the door. It's over. Once it's over, there's no turning back. And I thought, now I came into this hypnosis business from the world of religion in what is now a past life, and back in the religious days, we talked about this thing called redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow or another, I think going into it, if you're working with somebody who's, God knows what their past might be or what they might have done.
Right.
If you don't believe that they are redeemable, there isn't really any point in working with them in the first place. And so if you're going to do that kind of work, I think you have to have as a presupposition. Yes. There is something magnificent about this person, and and we want to bring that out. We want to take care of that. It lets you have compassion in situations like that, rather than going, well, I'm not going to even talk to that person. They don't deserve to, to have any of my fine work, or something. It's really quite crazy to me. And so again, your answer was just, well, there isn't really any of that not liking them there.
No, I've already decided that I like them. I decided that a long time ago, because, and again, I not to repeat myself, but it's really important to understand that sometimes I am the only person at that moment that does like them.
Yeah.
And, I started sharing that story with you about Bart. And Bart did end up going. He stuck with the class until he had to go and serve his time. He got out. He wanted to know if he could finish the class while he was in prison, and we did that. He got out and was able to have reunification with his family, and they came back for counseling, and they've been good to go. And that was about 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lovely story. Why don't we see those stories on the news?
I don't know, but it would be really nice to hear, wouldn't it? Yeah, because
I think those stories don't sell enough potato chips and popcorn. They're not popcorn material. They're more sort of the Skittles variety, and Skittles doesn't have as good of a lobby.
Right.
I wish I had some Skittles right now. Well, so the other thing is, when clients come in to our practice for their group, they check in with the front desk, and at the front desk is always, for us, is toward the front line. And so they are angry. They're coming for anger and violence intervention. And so invariably I'll get buzzed back and they'll say, your client was so rude. And so they already don't like my client. And so I'll always, if it's a new person and they haven't been here and they're not with the program, literally I'll just come out and say, I'm just going to ask you to get to like this person on purpose for about 12 weeks, whether they deserve it or not in your mind, because they will. In a few weeks, you're going to start noticing it. And I can't wait for you to buzz me again and tell me what you notice is different. Because I said, that's why they're here. You can't, so I can't have my front desk angry because the anger management people are coming. It's just been kind of an interesting journey, but it's the same attitude that you were describing before, that we're not going to like these people. And especially if they've done something horrible. But you start looking into the backgrounds of, what people are taught about anger. It's not very much, is it? They've been modeled, they've had something modeled for them, or they've developed some habits, bad habits, or both. And then no one teaches them that anger, there's ways to control it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many ways to change state.
Yeah.
And quickly. And that's what I love. The same thing goes for athletes, same thing goes for myself. I used something just the other day. Richard decided we were all going to give a 15-minute presentation, 15 or 20 minutes, and it was going to be the next day. And this was later at night, in Las Vegas. And we're all supposed to do something or go to sleep and then wake up and come back and, give a presentation. And so I looked at the room and I noticed the body language. The deer in the headlights look, from most everyone, because what happens when we can prepare a talk for these conferences, it's a lot different, isn't it? Yeah. And so it's the same thing. I just said, you know what? It's as if I'm a client sitting there. It doesn't matter what the emotion is. I have the feeling, and I always just interpret it the way I want to now. Whenever I feel that kind of scary, that what I used to label as fear or whatever, I just said, okay, well, I'm going to get really excited then and write a talk. So I wrote my whole talk about how to turn that, and I volunteered to go first so everyone could relax before they gave their presentation. But it's the same thing with anger, and I pick, I'm thankful every day that I chose to do these classes, because what happened in the process is it made me so much better at changing state around family members, or just being frustrated and maybe getting stuck in a line somewhere, especially in your car. You can't go anywhere in my town. It's got a lot of traffic, and oh my goodness, as a parent of an athlete, that's doing pretty well, it's not always positive energy that comes your way, because there's in competition, of course. And so it's helped me in so many ways. But my athletes, here, what I like about, I run, that's what I like to do. That's my thing. But what I like about it is all I need is myself and my shoes, and whatever I don't need a bunch of equipment. And it's the same thing with, these techniques that we have, right? We don't need a lot of stuff.
Right.
I mean, we can have all this fancy stuff to make recordings and all of that, but we don't need anything. We just need ourselves. And so knowing that you can pick up a water bottle and toss it around, or you can spin stuff that isn't actually there. It is, but it is, all of that is just quite amazing, because it works.
Yeah, you can actually pass around or toss around an imaginary water bottle.
Yes.
Well, we actually they do that, because they can't always take one to the block. The athletes do. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you don't have anything, but you have your mind.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I wonder if it makes sense to you, because I sort of hear it in there. I have this sense that unwanted emotions, all of this stuff about whether I'm happy, whether I'm miserable, whether I'm anxious. It's all about how it is that I'm thinking. It's emotions, as I see it, at least. Emotions are something that I do. I don't
Right.
usually realize that. I sort of think they're happening to me, but they're actually things that we do. And
Right.
and when you come to that understanding, then you're in a position where you can do something different.
Yeah.
If you actually want to, you can choose to be another way, and you seem to be saying that in terms of this is kind of what the work of hypnosis is doing often with our clients, is moving them from one state, to another state by saying, hey, you can adjust that. It doesn't have to feel this way.
Yeah. This stuff isn't happening to you, actually.
Yeah. Oh. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I always tell them. You haven't seen it, but at the end of the manual that we use, it puts everything together that they've learned.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have I have an audio, a self-hypnosis audio that they listen to empower them at the end, to congratulate them at the end, so they understand, and they're actually blown away at how much they've learned, because it was so easy, especially now with the hypnosis. And so I think I said, the one question you can't get wrong on the test is, that situations and people and events can control you and how you feel, because they absolutely do not. And that is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, there's a question that went by that I missed in the chat room. Cheryl was asking, how many people do you typically have in your anger management groups?
So no more than 10 ever. I like to keep it at 8. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather run several groups.
So 8 to 10, and they it's about an hour. Is the group meeting an hour?
An hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Yeah. It's supposed to be an hour and 15 minutes, but I never can do that. Can you imagine why? Because you can't even hardly stop me from talking. This is like.
and you only do them on Wednesdays?
No, I was just using Wednesday as the example with Bart.
I understand. Okay. So you've got revolving groups going all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 5 o'clock, 6:30, 8 o'clock.
Nice.
I see. I just didn't know if somebody they were court ordered, but they had to wait 8 weeks before they could get into a group.
No, they're open. So, and like I said, I do what we call the initial assessment. So I meet with them first. Mm-hmm. And now I have 2 other therapists running groups as well. So that's very helpful to me. Yeah, they've been doing it quite a while now too, 15, 14 years. I don't know, long time. We've all been here so long, but so that way, and we've got the different locations, and and both of our locations are on a bus line, because a lot of people don't have transportation. Right. So we want to make sure that they can get there, because, them being there is the difference between, a child being hurt, a spouse being hurt, it really makes a difference. My husband has a court-ordered program as well. He'll be talking about that at the HPTI February conference, the winter conference, and working with mandated clients. And we run the largest sex offender program in the state, actually. Michael, you're in the state of Florida. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice, because we're keeping things, a little bit safer that way, just by having polygraphs and But hey, that's been the great thing, is adding hypnosis to that program as well, because thought stopping is, we had thought stopping techniques, but nothing that worked like hypnosis, and being able to actually teach them a lot about how to do that differently, and they were up for it. It didn't feel like punishment.
Yeah, it occurred to me, by the way, and I don't want to let this discussion get by today without mentioning this. So yes, we are in Florida. What an interesting place to be. I don't know if you've been watching today's news, for example, but we managed to make national headline with it, with a 30-some-year-old father with 4 people in a household, barricaded away from the police. Until finally he shot all 4 children and himself.
Oh, no.
He held off for 20 some hours, with a stockpile of weapons, you know, another one of those things. And of course, today is the second anniversary of Pulse, of the shooting at Pulse nightclub here in Orlando. And I remember a month, I believe it was a month after the Pulse shooting, our chapter meeting was on like the anniversary, the first month anniversary. And we had Michael Elner as our guest. So a lot of folks, of course, remember Michael Elner. And really the conversation that night, it was a real lovely, compassionate thing about, how do you deal with these kinds of really upsetting losses, and the sense that at least for me, after Pulse, I spent a while. We get people shot in the Publix parking lot, and things like that. So every now and again, when these things get really pronounced, and I appreciate that this is my thinking, but and yet it seems to be a reality of our time, is that gosh, we just might not be safe on the streets, and how wonderful it is that there are ways to work with people that have anger management issues and this kind of stuff to do with. And this is a field that really could use some expansion and something to make it friendlier for people who think that I wouldn't want to do anything like that because there's nothing wrong with me. I never get but the kind of skills that we're talking about, gosh, are just life skills for all of us to have. So we really appreciate that you're doing this great work, Joni. It's an important thing. I'm just looking at the clock, and I want to make sure that we get everything in. I want to give you a little bit of time, not just yet, but shortly, to mention programs and things that you've got coming up that might be of interest to the folks that are on the line. And something that you mentioned to me in our emails and texts back and forth was that you have a visualization process that you might be able to do with this. Is that something that's appropriate and that you would?
Yeah, if you all would like to do that, what I have at the end of every step of the program, I provide a self-hypnosis audio so that the clients can, again, feel empowered and have an understanding of what they've learned to that point. Instead of when, I talked about the graduation visualization, but as they close, they close their eyes and they're able to do this at night, they just reinforces that sense of empowerment and look how far I've come. And I think even in the very beginning that it needed to start with step one, when we teach, normalizing that it's normal. We don't always, the word anger comes up and we all think bad. A lot, we make bad, it's not. I mean, it has a lot of benefits that are useful. And so that's something that we teach in there too, because we don't, say you go through a whole program and then you get angry and you think you weren't, so, oh no, I failed. I'm angry. That's not even, that has nothing to do with the truth. So some of this basic information, I think we take for granted that we have to teach people. No one does it for us growing up or in school, or I wish they would. Right. But that, that they need to understand they're not the same. So, and that's a good thing. So maybe they may still feel irritated, or they may say a few things they don't mean, or, act out a lot less, but a little bit, but they're making a lot of progress. And so, yeah, so I thought about maybe that would be a good thing to hear. And maybe you guys just close your eyes and listen to that script so you can see, imagine that's how it would be after you've been through step one of a program.
Yes,
and,
it'd be great.
And that's just one of 5. The graduation one would be better because you'd be blown away, but it's kind of long.
Okay.
I mean, it's really, so sure, we can do that. Yeah. Yeah. So is this the time for us to do that? I can't even believe how fast the time goes in this.
I know.
Yes, this would be.
I know. We have just about a little over 15 minutes left. So yeah,
okay.
Let's do it.
So this would be just perfect.
Okay, so let's do that. So if you will, just close your eyes. And just relax. And I'm sure at this point of the evening, that's not going to be hard to do. You've had your eyes open all day long. Busy with work. We've been having an amazing discussion here. something I'm passionate about. So right now, just imagine that you've been a part of this group, that you came to a group where, you were scared and uncertain coming in because no one was going to like you when you told your story. And so if you can just put yourself in that place, or maybe remember a time where you felt that isolated and you felt like maybe if people knew the truth about something that you'd done, or you just said that maybe they wouldn't like you or accept you very much. And so as you continue to relax with your eyes closed, I want you to imagine a stage that's divided into two sides. And so the stage it's well lit, and it allows you to see clearly any scene that appears. And so allow yourself to step back in your mind, and while focusing on the left side of the stage, I want you to imagine and relive an incident in which you became very angry and upset. And as you relive that, see what you see. Hear everything you can hear. Feel whatever it is you're feeling. And just notice as much as you can notice. And as you sit back and watch this emotional scene, your unconscious mind reminds you of all of the things that you've learned now about anger. Dwell on it, study it, and see this situation as you continue to relive this experience, and notice how your unconscious mind makes you aware of what motivates this anger, or what you're getting out of this feeling in this scene. Maybe it's helping you to avoid other unpleasant emotions, such as hurt, or maybe embarrassment. Or perhaps it's making you feel strong and powerful in this situation rather than weak, or scared, or inferior, or the things that you don't like to feel, more than you don't like to feel anger. And for some, it may just be a way to discharge a strong, painful feeling. Whatever lies behind the anger that you're seeing, your unconscious mind will bring these issues into your consciousness so that you can understand what's motivating this painful emotion. And as you continue to see this situation from a distance, your mind also realizes the consequences and the costs that are associated with these angry feelings or behaviors. For some people, it may result in destroying a friendship, a business relationship, or even a marriage. Or maybe you realize that it changes the way that people act around you. They may become angry, defensive, and even avoid you. And some people become aware that they're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy that protects them in some way. Perhaps expect rejection and mistreatment, and this angry feeling may cause that to come true. Any of those things. Just continue viewing your anger from a distance and realizing that this feeling has disrupted your ability to think clearly. And just watch that for a moment. And the more you ventilate your anger in this scene, the more it spirals out of control and pumps you up. And just relate to that feeling. And just continue to focus and watch it closely. Some may see this feeling creating retaliation, resulting in loneliness and just horrible isolation, as they come to realize that this anger, not all anger, but this anger is their enemy, that it causes emotional difficulties and even damaging physical health, or whatever it is for you. Watch it closely. See what you see. Hear what you hear. Feel what you feel. And notice what you notice in your scene. And allow your mind to become aware of what it is for you that feeds that anger. And also the problems it can cause if it's allowed to grow. And so as you sit back viewing this angry scene, understanding this anger, you now realize you have a choice. As you come to breathe in and out, start using the techniques you're just beginning to get good at. Allow your mind to shift this scene to the right side of the stage that you've been viewing. And as this scene is shifted, allow your unconscious mind to simply re-experience it. Allow your anger to be in any shape, color, size, or form that you may see. Some people see it like a ball of fire. Others see it dancing or doing a variety of other things, signing pictures, and you can assign sounds, feel, taste, smell. Whatever that version is, your unconscious mind creates. And now, as it's there on the stage, you can choose to step in and shrink it, letting it go, whatever way your subconscious mind creates. And as you breathe in and out, allowing an improved version of the original scene, avoiding the consequences that you didn't want. Continue doing this as you add your new resources, your deep breathing, your new self-awareness, and the skills you're learning to manage what's been destructive anger for you in the past. And noticing that as you relax, just viewing this anger, even the process of understanding it has resulted in it becoming less powerful. And that is good. Just continue relaxing, letting go, and observing this process, this shift that has taken place. Breathing deeply and relaxing even more every time you exhale. Feeling proud and empowered by what your mind has just accomplished. And as you continue to relax, you become aware that anytime you feel anger, that each and every time you feel anger, your mind will flood you with these thoughts and insights and help you understand your anger and remind you that you always have a choice. Relax and let go now, understanding that this has become a part of you, that this is not just something you saw or heard in a class, but that this is the way that you now think about anger, and your subconscious mind and your whole being accepts this as the truth, always leaving you with a choice. Just take a deep breath in and out and open your eyes when you're ready.
Nice.
And so that's what the clients get for reinforcement after each module or each step.
Nice.
Just kind of like going back, reviewing, seeing the differences, and also at the end, just always reinforcing that they have a new awareness and a lot of learning under their belt at that point. Because, you look at words on a page, you can look at a manual, but when they're actually practicing and, using self-hypnosis audios, so that's not once a week. That's a big difference from the past, where they would come into a group once a week for an hour and a half, that's just not enough. If you call something homework, they already have a lot of stress. So I don't like using the word homework ever. That's why all my products say guide, because I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't need any more work. It's just, you know what I mean? Unless it's something fun. But I don't, in terms of somebody giving me more work to do. So, but that's just that's the tone, and that's kind of how it goes.
That's lovely.
Thank
Karen and I have been giving our hypnosis students homework that we've decided works out better not to call it homework, but to call it to call it experiments. And basically, we say, go out and do this and find out what happens.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. That's perfect. Right. And that has an element of, excitement. What's going to happen? Other than, what's going to happen if you sit down with a pen and paper. It's going to feel bad. It's going to feel like something you must do.
So Joni, let's let these people know how they can interact with you and get involved with you and all the stuff that you got going on. One of the things I understand is that you're going to be adding AVIP certification to in HPTI's curriculum. Is that right?
Yes.
That's a pretty cool thing. Do you have any idea what the ETA is on that? Because I know things are changing there. So.
Right. Well, that'll have a lot to do with Dr. Richard Nongard and when he's ready to do that. But I think I'm ready to do that in the fall. I think a great time to launch that will be right after the presentation that I'm doing on the ABCs, the hypnotic ABCs of anger, where I'll actually be doing some really just like quick and easy techniques that I do in groups.
Now again, you're doing that at the virtual convention, right?
Right.
So it's an online convention
Yes.
run by Richard Nongard, HPTI online, basically. And hypnosisconvention.com, I believe, is in fact the URL that will get people to information about that program. It's amazing that he got hypnosisconvention.com as a URL.
Isn't that amazing?
Nobody ever thought of it before, I guess.
Or it's just got to be a timing issue. I mean, it's just timing is everything with those.
Yeah.
But,
and Richard is going to be our guest next month as well, so we'll be talking a little bit about that. So people know that they can certainly tune in to that online conference. Like I said, the banquet won't be as good as IACT and IMDHA's, but what do you think?
No. Again, it depends on what you bring to the banquet. You can
Right.
bring your own banquet.
Sure enough.
I'm
And
not ordering Domino's.
These will be cheaper, I guarantee you.
Right?
well, that's true.
Exactly.
And then a certification again through HPTI later on sometime in the fall. So watch for that, and it'll be coming down the pike. Anything else that you've got going that folks might be interested in, or books, something?
I've got the manual, and it's on my website. I'm going to use that as part of the certification program, because just to teach people how to actually use it and some of the pitfalls, some of the problems they might run into. But the manual is up on my website.
And what's the URL for your website?
And so that is Joni Neidigh hypnosis.com.
And Joni, I'm going to type that in.
I kept that really easy, didn't I?
Yes, except for the spelling. JONINEID as in dog, IG as in girl, H.
Yes.
As in hello.
I know, right? That's perfect. I just love hearing my name pronounced correctly over and over again. This has been fantastic.
But pronouncing it correctly does not in any way help us spell it.
It's Joni Neidigh.
I know, it took me a while too. I thought this is going to be my name. My maiden name is Johnston, okay?
So it's Joni Neidigh hypnosis.com, is that right?
Yes.
Hypnosis.com. So now, and it's just Joni at that address?
Yes.
Beautiful. So now it is in the chat room. I will also make a point when this gets posted in the Facebook group to to include that URL again, so so people can get in touch with you if they would like to do that.
Thank you.
Now, we've only got a few minutes left. There is a question that's been hanging out here again, and it came from Craig, who's asking, is anger ever a protection mechanism guarding a deeper underlying emotion, like fear, that ultimately has to be dealt with down below in the deep structure? I don't know exactly what he means by that, but he says that you start out with one primary emotion that attempts to grab all of your attention, and you end up with the real emotional issue that's been hiding down below, hiding even from the client.
Yeah. Well, so anger is often a protective mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always necessary, and that's what we teach. You know, a lot of times clients just don't have familiarity with the other emotions.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid of fear. If that, right? They're afraid of shame. They're afraid of guilt. They're afraid of, you know, anything we quote say is a negative emotion, which is, they're all actually necessary for us to evolve as human beings and experience. But so I would say yes, often it is used as a protective mechanism. So I suspect maybe the next question that, and I'm just speculating, would be, well, if you teach them, you know, what do they do if they don't have anger? Well, they will always have it. Will always be angry, you know, always experience that emotion, but they just they'll be able to change that state when it's not working for them, when it's hurting them and not helping them.
Nice.
And but we deal with all of those. We want them to experience those other emotions in a safe place.
Okay. All right. So we would love to have a lot more time than we have, but we've only got a couple minutes left. So I think if somebody has a question, we've probably just got time for one of them. You can feel free to open up your microphone and say hello, or ask Joni what's on your mind.
And since you muted them, Michael, can they unmute themselves?
They can unmute themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and always, I mean, I'm willing, if you contact me, to answer any questions. You know, you guys are all wonderful to me. We all
Scott, did you have a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Jay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi there. Hi there. So Joni, I'm a bit of a beginner at all this, and I'm not a therapist. I'm a physical therapist who's just working with pain stuff and just starting to get going with it.
Right.
And I've been training with the Ericksonians a whole bunch, and the word that comes up always is solution-focused hypnosis. And I'm wondering if you could talk about anger and a solution-focused approach.
Well, I use a cognitive behavioral approach. And I know you don't have the manual in front of you, but that, yeah, combined with hypnosis. Because if you can tap into the distortions, okay, like I can't, you know, just the whole concept of I can't stand it, you know, when she or he does this, or and turn that around. That's how I normally deal with it. But so what is your experience with pain control and solution focus? I'm curious. We'll have to talk, because I can't wait to hear about that, because pain and anger go together so well, right?
And you know, one of the things that you might do is look at perhaps some of the symptoms of pain, and see if you could, in some ways, perhaps tell a story that would be an oppositional. So if they're having their heart's beating very fast and they're salivating a lot, you might be able to encourage them to, through a story, metaphor, whatever, to be, you know, seeing things going slower, having control over the speed of things, slowing down the salivation or whatever it is, slowing down the water that's dripping into the irrigation ditch and all that kind of stuff. And again, as a beginner, I'm just playing with all this stuff. I don't know. I mean, I'm just doing what I've learned.
Right. Well, with so many techniques for pain control with hypnosis, you're going to do really, really well.
It's fascinating, it's exciting, and it's daunting.
Oh yeah.
Great.
Yeah, well, it is because there's so many incredible people and you see all these incredible techniques, but you just, build your skills and use what you already have and then steal everyone's stuff and play around with it. You'll come up with a mix that works perfectly for you. That's my advice.
How about repurpose or utilize the people's stuff?
Whatever. Yeah, everybody says yes.
I do want to let Scott have a chance to ask a question. Scott, if you have a question that you wanted to bring up here.
Oh, is that me?
Yes, please.
Oh, there was a mention of an intern that was going to quit. I was wondering, did she in fact do that after the BART story?
She did quit. She did end up quitting. She really did not like the work.
Yeah.
She was we worked a lot on, her fear in general, but she just really didn't enjoy working with the clients. And it is a tough job. It's really tough. You imagine that on any given night, someone's going to show up who's pretty new and they don't want to be there. So they're not coming to, like with hypnosis, they're coming in and saying, oh, I want to be hypnotized and I want this. They're coming to me and saying, I don't like you. I don't want to be here. I don't like anybody. And so it's a different starting point, but yeah, so I just don't think it's the work for everyone. I wish everyone wanted to do it.
Well,
but how fortunate for her and for all of her potential clients and for the rest of her life that she found that out early.
Right.
You
right.
know what
She can choose to dislike as many people as she wants. That's the beauty of life, is we get choice. We have choices.
Well, and and if I might add, the work that you're doing, Joni, I think is something that takes a very special person, and so we are honored to have had a special person talking to us tonight. It's some great stuff that you shared with us, some lovely insight. So thank you so much for being here. I'm just so sorry that the time has flown by as quickly as it has. I need to make a very quick announcement, and then don't go away, Joni, because we've got a real send-off for you. The announcements that I need to make are just to remind you that if you're a member of IACT or IMDHA or the IHF, you can get CEUs for this presentation. So be sure and claim the CEUs. It was a lovely experience, but still, you can get you can get credit for it. So what the heck? So,
why not?
So why not take credit for it? The recording will be posted within 24 hours, probably a lot sooner than that. So watch for it coming soon to the virtual chapter Facebook group near you and to the virtual chapter YouTube channel as well, and on the IACT IMDHA forum. And next month, Karen and I will be joined by Richard Nongard and Jason Lynette, and we will be talking about the unfolding virtual educational opportunities available to hypnotists as the world continues to change. So looking forward to that next month. So now here's why I needed you to hang on, Joni, because I shorted my announcements just to make sure that you wouldn't go away, because what we do at the end of every virtual chapter meeting is, in a minute, I'm going to do one of the most reckless things that I've ever done in my life.
Wow.
And I'm going to take one of the very most reckless things, actually. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take everybody off mute all at once so that we can all just tell you goodbye, good night, we love you, thank you for being here, and all of that great stuff. And then we'll look forward to seeing everyone next month. So with that, thanks again, Joni. From the bottom of our hearts, we really appreciate you being here for us.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you. Thanks for you guys for joining in. I appreciate it.
You're real welcome. Okay, say good night, everybody.
Good night,
everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye. It was great.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Sherry. Bye.